whisper beneath the floor. The house had been empty for 12 years. At least, that's what everyone in the village said. It stood far from the main road, surrounded by tall, tangled trees that blocked most of the sunlight. Even during the day, the place felt dim and strangely quiet, as if the world outside had forgotten it existed. When Arif and his family moved in, people noticed. They didn't say much directly, but their eyes followed the family wherever they went. Some whispered behind their backs. Others warned them politely, telling them the house had a bad history. Arif's father ignored all of it. "It's just superstition," he said. "Old houses always come with stories." Arif tried to believe him, but from the moment he stepped inside, he felt something strange. It wasn't fear exactly. It was presence, like someone else was already there. The first night, Arif couldn't sleep. The air inside the house felt heavy. The walls creaked occasionally, and the wind brushed softly against the windows. But something felt off. The silence was too deep, too complete. He lay on his bed staring at the ceiling. Then he heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Arif's body went still. The sound was faint but clear. He slowly sat up, his eyes fixed on the floor. It wasn't coming from above. It was coming from below, from under the floorboards. He held his breath. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, measured, almost like someone knocking. "Hello?" Arif whispered, his voice barely audible. The tapping stopped instantly. The silence that followed felt different. He felt it clearly now. Something was listening. The next morning, Arif told his mother. "It's probably rats," she said without concern. "This house is old." But Arif knew what rats sounded like. This wasn't scratching. This was deliberate. That night, the sound returned. Louder, clearer. Tap, tap, tap. Arif sat up immediately. His heart began to race. He stared at the center of the room where the sound seemed strongest. Slowly, he got out of bed. The floor felt cold beneath his feet. He walked toward the sound and knelt down. Then, with shaking fingers, he tapped back. Tap, tap. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, tap, tap, tap. Arif's breath caught. Something had answered him. And deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. After that night, everything changed. Arif could no longer ignore the sound. Every night it returned, sometimes soft, sometimes louder, but always with the same strange rhythm. It was no longer random. It felt intentional, alive. At first, he tried to pretend it wasn't happening, but curiosity slowly replaced fear. Each night, he began to wait for it, and when it came, he answered. Tap, tap, and always, tap, tap, tap. The response came instantly, perfectly timed, like a conversation. Days passed, and Arif grew used to it, too used to it. Then one night, something new happened. Along with the tapping, he heard a faint whisper. "Help me." Arif froze. The voice was weak, barely there, like it was coming from far away. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. "Cold." The whisper trembled. So cold. Arif felt a chill run through his body. This wasn't just sound anymore. This was something real, something trapped. He stopped telling his parents. They wouldn't understand. Instead, he started thinking, what if someone really was trapped under the house? What if no one had ever checked? The thought wouldn't leave his mind. A few nights later, he decided to act. When the house fell completely silent, Arif got out of bed and grabbed a small tool. He walked to the spot where the sound always came from and knelt down. The wooden floorboards were old and slightly loose. With some effort, he pried one open. It lifted with a dry, cracking sound. A narrow gap appeared. Immediately, a rush of cold air escaped from below. It wasn't normal cold. It felt deep, unnatural. Arif hesitated, then picked up his flashlight. With trembling hands, he pointed it into the darkness. At first, nothing, just empty blackness. Then, something moved, and everything inside him told him he should not have opened it. Arif's grip on the flashlight tightened as he leaned closer to the opening. The beam of light shook slightly in his hand. At first, the darkness below seemed endless, like the light couldn't reach the bottom. It swallowed everything, refusing to reveal what was hidden. Then, a shape appeared, slowly. From the depths of the darkness, something pale began to rise. Arif's breath stopped. A hand, thin, colorless, almost gray. Its skin looked stretched tightly over bone, as if it had been there for a very long time. The fingers trembled as they reached upward, moving slowly, weakly. "Please," the whisper came again. But now, it was clearer, closer. Arif stumbled back, his heart pounding violently in his chest. The hand twitched again. Then, with unnatural effort, it began pulling itself upward. The fingers scraped softly against the wood, clawing, reaching, trying to escape. Arif's mind screamed at him to run, but his body froze. "Help me," the voice said again. For a moment, it sounded human, desperate, lost, but something about it felt wrong. Very wrong. Suddenly, the fingers bent in a strange way. Too far, too sharply. Not natural, Arif gasped. The hand jerked forward suddenly, faster than before. That was enough. Arif slammed the floorboard shut with all his strength and scrambled backward, his entire body shaking. He ran out of the room without looking back. The next day, he went to the oldest man in the village. The man listened silently as Arif spoke. When he finished, the old man's face had gone pale. "You should leave that house," he said quietly. "Why?" Arif asked. The old man leaned closer. "A girl lived there many years ago," he said. "She disappeared one night." "Disappeared?" "They said she ran away," the man continued. But no one believed it. People heard things after that, knocking, crying from under the floor. Arif felt a cold weight settle in his chest. What happened to her? The old man shook his head slowly. No one ever found her. But the way he said it made Arif realize that wasn't the worst part. That night, Arif returned to his room, but everything felt different. The air was colder, heavier, as if the house itself knew what he had done. The moment he stepped inside, the tapping started. Not soft, not slow, violent. "Tap, tap, tap!" Arif froze. "Let me out," the voice whispered. But it wasn't weak anymore. It sounded stronger, demanding. The floorboards trembled beneath his feet. Dust fell from the cracks. "Tap, tap, tap!" So dark. The voice deepened. It didn't sound human anymore. It sounded layered, like more than one voice speaking at once. Arif slowly backed away. "I can't," he whispered. "I don't know what you are." The tapping stopped. For a brief moment, silence. Then, a laugh. Low, dry, hollow. "Smart boy." Arif's blood ran cold. The floor cracked. A long, thin finger pushed through the wood. Then another. Then more. They bent at impossible angles, gripping the broken edges of the floorboards, forcing them apart. The wood splintered loudly. Something was coming out, not crawling, not climbing, forcing, breaking its way into the room. Arif turned and ran without hesitation. Behind him, he heard the sound of wood snapping, and something dragging itself upward. He didn't return to the room that night, or the next. The next morning, his parents finally saw it. The room was destroyed. The floorboards were broken apart, scattered across the room. But when they looked beneath, there was nothing. No hole, no space, just solid earth, untouched, as if nothing had ever come from below, as if nothing had ever been there. Arif didn't try to explain, because he knew, whatever it wasn't gone. Days passed, then weeks. Slowly, life returned to normal. Arif stayed away from his room. His parents repaired the floor, replacing the broken boards and sealing every gap tightly. They told themselves it had been animals, or stress, or imagination. Arif said nothing, but he listened. Every night, waiting. For a while, there was nothing. No tapping, no whispering, no cold air, just silence. And somehow, that felt worse. Then one night, everything changed again. Arif sat with his parents in the living room. The house was quiet. The clock ticked softly on the wall. Then, tap, tap, tap. All three of them froze. The sound came from below, not from Arif's room, from the living room floor. His mother slowly looked down. His father didn't move. No one spoke. Tap, tap, tap. The sound came again. Clear, deliberate, patient. Then, a whisper. Faint, but unmistakable. "Hello." Arif's heart stopped. It wasn't asking for help anymore. It wasn't weak. It sounded calm, almost curious. His father stood up slowly. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. No one answered, because they all had. Tap, tap, tap. The sound spread, not just one spot. Multiple, from different parts of the floor. Around them, surrounding them. The whisper returned. Softer, closer. "We are here." Arif felt the same cold fear rise again, but stronger this time, because now he understood the truth. It had never been just one. The floor creaked. A faint crack appeared beneath the center of the room. Then another. and another, thin lines spreading across the wood like veins. Arv stepped back slowly, his breath shaking, because deep inside, he knew. This time, it wasn't trying to escape. It was already inside.